army have suffered a major defeat. The U.S. claims that North Korean troops deployed to the Russian-occupied Kursk region have suffered terrible losses, with 1,000 people killed or wounded in the last week. It is clear that Russian and North Korean military leaders are treating these troops as expendable assets and ordering them to launch desperate attacks against Ukrainian defenses, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby told reporters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed in his nightly address the previous evening. Zelensky said that the North Koreans have very little protection and are taking precautions to avoid capture, adding, "Everything is set up to make it impossible for us to catch them. There are cases when they were executed by their own forces. The Russians send them on the offensive with minimal protection." Kirby characterized the attack by North Korean troops as mass on-foot attacks. Kirby said North Korean troops, which Russia considers expendable, launched massed foot attacks on Ukrainian positions that were actually not very effective and resulted in 1,000 casualties. The U.S. officials said the forces, which Kiev says were sent by Pyongyang to help Russia, were highly sophisticated and carried out attacks even when they were clearly futile. Kirby suggested that these troops would rather take their own lives than surrender to Ukraine, possibly out of fear of reprisals against their families. Kirby also said Washington would provide more weapons to Kiev to help it push back North Korean waves around Kursk, which Ukraine seized in a lightning raid on August 6th. But Ukraine, after making quick gains, has been set back by Putin's attempts to retake the region. Analysts believe Kiev aims to use it as a bargaining chip in future negotiations and to divert Russian military resources elsewhere. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin have deepened ties since the war began with a full-scale Russian invasion in February 2022. Kiev says it has been bringing in ammunition and more recently personnel from North Korea as Russia continues to suffer heavy losses. An estimated 10,000 to 12,000 North Korean troops are thought to have been sent to fight alongside Russia. The first confirmed clashes between Ukrainian and Russian forces took place on November 5th. According to Kiev, North Korean troops are among the approximately 50,000 troops Russia has deployed to the border region. Later, President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that the Russians were not interested in the survival of North Korean military personnel in Kursk Oblast. He said that they were sent to the attacks with minimal protection and that their own side executed them to prevent their capture. Today, we received reports about several servicemen from North Korea. Our fighters managed to capture them, but they were seriously wounded and could not be revived. This is one of the manifestations of the madness that dictatorships are capable of. The Korean nation should not lose its people in the wars in Europe. Kirby also said President Joe Biden is likely to approve another security aid package for Ukraine in the coming days. The Associated Press reported that this package is expected to be worth $1.5 billion. He said the package would include a range of ammunition for the National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile Systems and the Hawk Air Defense System, as well as Stinger missiles and 155mm and 105mm artillery shells. Meanwhile, Slovakia confirmed its readiness to host peace talks aimed at ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Moscow was open to a Slovak proposal to host peace talks with Ukraine, which Russia invaded in February 2022. "We offer Slovak territory for such negotiations," Slovak Foreign Minister Juraj Blanner said. Blanner also said that any talks should be held with the participation of all parties, including Russia. Russian officials were not present at previous talks in Switzerland in June. Blanner continued, "We see the Russian president's statement as a positive signal to end this war, this bloodshed, and this destruction as soon as possible." Slovakia, a member of the European Union and NATO, has expressed its willingness to host peace talks in Ukraine in October, the foreign minister said. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico is one of the few European leaders to maintain a close relationship with Moscow. On December 22nd, he received an angry reaction from Ukraine when he met Putin in Moscow. Fico also halted all Slovak military aid to Ukraine and accused Ukraine of threatening Slovakia's Russian gas supplies. Also on Friday, the Ukrainian Air Force announced that its air defenses had shot down 13 of the 24 Russian drones launched in the overnight attack. The other 11 Russian drones disappeared without causing damage, the Air Force said. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha to discuss the latest developments on the battlefield and U.S. support for Ukraine during the war, the U.S. State Department said. The secretary reiterated the unwavering support of the United States to defend the freedoms of Ukrainians, State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said. The Russian Defense Ministry said the previous day that Russian forces had taken control of 2 villages in eastern Ukraine. The villages were Ivanivka in the Donetsk region and Zarizhov in the Kharkiv region, the ministry said. All the while, the defense operation of the fighting Ukrainian forces continues to fulfill 2 main tasks. Since the fall of 2023, the Russian occupiers have been conducting a strategic offensive operation. Fighting is now intensifying along the entire front line. However, the enemy has not achieved a single strategic goal within the time frame set by the Kremlin. Sergei Bratchuk, spokesman for the Ukrainian Volunteer Army,